Just came from Central Florida, checked on the bees. They're doing great, collecting a lot of orange blossom honey. But let me get you inside this box and we'll do some measuring. Hey y'all, it's Jim Wellman, March 14th, 2021, and we're back here in Orlando, Florida. Came here to check on this, where I got the swarm from. I wanted to first see if there's any more bees that were staying here, and second, I want to measure the distance between each comb. So you know how you have a Langstroth hive body, you might have a frame every 1.5 inches apart or something like that. I don't know the exact distance. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to measure the distance between the combs that I scraped off the roof inside this cabinet here, give us an indication of how accurate the boxes that we use today are to what the bees would have done in nature, let's say, if we can call this nature. Close to nature as we're going to get right now. All right, so what we're looking at in here is each line where we had a comb that we cut off last time when I caught that swarm a few weeks ago. And what I want to do is just measure. I might have to move you a little bit. Get you out here, zoom you in a little bit. I'm just going to get on my back. Hopefully my arms reach up there. I'm going to measure the center line. So we have one line here, one line here. Right here we got about 1 inch and looks like 5/16. Here we got about 1.5 inches. And let's measure this one. That's about 1 inch and 5/16. And this one, it's about 1 inch. And it's about 1.25 inches. And this one kind of, at the base, it's a little narrower right here. We got about 1.25 inches here. Oh, maybe even, yeah, about 1.25 inches here. And as we move out, it gets a little wider. Right about here, we got 1 inch and 1, 2, 3, about 1 inch and 3/8. Over here we're about 1.5 inches. And then as we end it, we're back to 1 inch. Ooh, back to 1 inch and 5/8. So I'd say on average we're about 1 inch and, sorry, I said 5/16. About 1 inch and 5/16 from the center line of one set of comb to the center line of the other set of comb. So there we go, we got 1 and 5/16 inches from center line to center line inside this comb, close to a natural setting as I could come up in my mind to find right now. This is from the swarm that we caught just a couple weeks ago. Now we're going to go measure the inside of a Langstroth box and see if there's any kind of correlation between center line to center line of the frames to what we have center line to center line inside here. Now I know that inside a natural setting it's never even. There could be, like I got down to 1 1/4, but then I also got out to like 1 in one spot, 1.5, almost 1 3/4. And then sometimes you might see comb that's right next to one another, maybe at 1 and 5/16, but then it veers off from one another, and then they build another comb in between those two. So I don't really understand why they do what they do, but more so what I was concerned about is I was questioning if what's going on inside a Langstroth box is based off of what was seen in nature. I've got a Langstroth 10 frame box set up here, and I've evenly spaced everything, so I have 3/8 inch gap in between basically everything except this because I just moved it. But we got 3/8 inch gap between the outer wall and the first frame, and then same gap all the way across. So everything's evenly spaced. And what I'm going to do, rather than doing center line to center line, I'm going to measure outer of one to the outer of the next, because I didn't draw a perfect center line on these, or I haven't taken the time to measure it. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So in doing so, we get 1 and it looks like 7/16. It's right about the 7/16. So I was getting 1 5/16 centerline to centerline when I measured inside the inside that cabinet. So that's fairly close. So I still don't quite understand the correlation yet for what we're doing here. I understand 3/8 inch gap, we call that beespace, but it may be that they in real life don't actually need 3/8 inches. Maybe they could do with a little less than that. 3/8 is 6/16. So if we came down to 16th, we'd be at 5/16. So maybe that's really what the gap should be, but obviously 3/8 works just fine. Everybody's happy about that. But I think we could really narrow this down a little bit and maybe make it a 5/16 gap here as our B space. I know there's been many people before me who have actually put the time into determining whether or not or what the B space should actually be, but just based off what I saw in a natural setting when I did the measurements, the majority of my measurements were 1 5/16 from center line to center line, whereas on a Langstroth what I'm getting is 1 7/16. So take that for what it's worth. This wasn't a video created to prove anything wrong or tell you what you should be doing. This is just me being curious. That's one neat thing about beekeeping. It's like an ongoing science experiment. There's a lot to be curious about. There's a lot to learn about. There's a lot that you can manipulate, change the way you do things to make, to create a better outcome. But like I said, I'm not doing this to tell you you need to start changing what distance you have for bee space. This is just an observation. So take it for what it's worth. But I hope you liked the video. Hope it made you think a little bit. But if you haven't done so already, like and subscribe. Appreciate you watching. If you're following the bee journey, more to come. I'm going to continue to move these hives around the state in search of that next great nectar source. Leave your comments and questions down below, especially if you have any comments about something like this. Maybe you've looked into this on your own in the past and come to some different conclusion than what I've come to. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.